Hello, this is Yana Smakula. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited to have you here. This video focuses on different types of cardstock for hot foil stamping. I've seen numerous comments and questions online, on Facebook, on Instagram, and also on my blog asking why the hot foil stamping doesn't work. Why doesn't it foil perfectly? And why am I not getting good foil coverage? What am I doing wrong? So I thought I would film this video and show you that you are not doing anything wrong. You're simply using incorrect type of paper for your project. This simple realization took me quite a long time to figure out. When I just started using my Glimmer hot foil system from Spellbinders, I was told that it is best to foil on smooth, non-textured paper. And this is the rule I went by for a very long time. While this rule is certainly true, there is so much more to it. If you've been making cards for some time now, you might know that there are different types of papers for different types of projects. For example, if you want to work with Copic markers, there is a specialty Copic marker paper that is designed to work with alcohol markers to give you the best results. The same goes for watercolor. There is watercolor paper to give you the best watercolor results. Again, the same goes for alcohol inks. There is the best paper for that. There are specialty papers for ink blending and so on. So when you think about it, all of these techniques require the right tools, the best tools to get the job done to give you the best results. The same applies to hot foil stamping. You can't just take any paper and expect to have perfect results. No, you need to pick the best paper for this particular job. It is that simple, but it is vital. Over my 3 years working with a Glimmer hot foil system, I have found several types of paper that work best when it comes to hot foil stamping. I'm sure there are still many other papers to discover, and I'm sure I'll discover more papers in the future. But for now, these are the papers that I have found work best for hot foil stamping. For the sake of this demonstration, I picked one Glimmer plate and I foiled it in the same color of foil on all papers that I'm testing. The plate I picked is the polka dot strip, and the reason I picked this particular plate is because it has a lot of solid space. And usually the more solid the plate is, the harder it is to get a perfect foiled result using it. I also have these snarky hearts plates. These are just as solid and they make for a great test plate for this demo. So these two plates will help me test the papers in this video. As for the foil, I picked polished brass just because I had a brand new unopened roll of this foil and I figured I was probably going to need a lot of foil for my experiments. I didn't want to run out of foil in the middle of my testing. I pre-cut my foil to size using my quick trimmer. I just cut about 2-inch wide strips, and that made it both faster and easier to do my testing. So let's go ahead and dive into different types of paper. I'm testing 7 papers in this video. If there are papers you'd like me to test, leave me a comment below. I'll try to purchase that paper, test it, and share my findings in the second episode of this video, Best Cardstock for Hot Foil Stamping. Or you can test that particular paper if you have it. You can test it at home using my tips. And share your findings with everyone in the comments below. First up, we have Neenah Solar White Cardstock. The 80-pound and the 110-pound foil pretty much the same, so I'm just going to foil the 80-pound cardstock in this video. Neenah Solar White is a very popular cardstock, and I feel like every card maker has this paper in their stash, and I'm sure many of you have reached for this particular paper to foil on. Overall, this is probably my least favorite paper to foil on. It is okay if you need to foil a thin line sentiment, but not my first choice for anything more substantial. Sometimes even the thin line sentiments don't foil too well on Neenah. Neenah is fantastic paper for stamping, for card bases, even for coloring, but it doesn't work for hot foil stamping. For this experiment, I'm going to show you exactly how I foil, but all consecutive experiments, I will just skip to the foil results. I've placed the glimmer plate on my Glimmer hot foil platform. I've pressed the timer button and covered the plate with foil. Foil is sitting pretty side down. Next, I added my Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock and finally added my 2 plates or shims on top. And then I always add a cardstock shim. Always. Unless I'm foiling on some super thick cardstock, which is something that actually never happens. So I just always add that cardstock shim. Now, I will heat up my plate every single time for every single type of paper that I'm to test. Now, why will I do that? I will do that so that I have the same conditions for every type of cardstock that I'm testing. I'm making sure that my plate is equally hot for each specific paper. I used my Platinum 6 die cutting machine to send the platform through, to apply pressure, and to transfer the foil. I do like to go rather slow, and I send the platform forward and then back. And here's what the result looks like. Not the best. You can see it foiled so-so. Neenah Solar White is an okay paper to foil if you need to foil a small sentiment, but not if you have a big plate with lots of solid space. Look at the leftover piece here. You can see a lot of foil did not transfer onto the paper. It looks kind of okay, but far from perfect. This is a 2 in my book. Next up is Yupo paper. Now, Yupo will give you a foil result that looks incredible. You'll think it was done professionally. Doesn't that look perfect? To me, it feels like this was professionally printed. It is just so perfect. There is that one top dot that didn't foil perfectly. I presume that was just because it was too close to the other plate, as I did foil these 2 plates together. And the conversation heart foiled just as perfectly. Here's a look at the negative foil piece. You can tell that we have a perfect foil transfer. There is no leftover. To me, Yupo paper is the best paper to foil on. This is a 5 in my book. Next, I foiled on Tonic Studios Craft Perfect Ultra Smooth cardstock. The name intrigued me as you do need something perfectly smooth. The smoother the surface of the paper, the better. As you can see, it did not quite stand to the test. It is great cardstock for all sorts of things. Hot foiling is simply not one of them. It foiled about the same as did the Neenah Solar White. I'd say this paper is good for foiling small, thin line sentiments, but nothing more. This is a 2 in my book. Moving on. Next, we have Simon Says Stamp White 120-pound cardstock. This is called Ultra Thick White, and this paper is super smooth. The results you will have with this paper are nearly perfect, almost as good as on Yupo paper. This is fantastic paper to foil on. We just have little minor imperfections here, but overall, I'm very pleased with this cardstock and with the foil results I can get when using it. There's nearly no leftover foil on the negative piece, just the little specks here and there, but overall, this is a very good paper for hot foil stamping. This gets a 4 in my book. Next, I have Simon Says Stamp White 130-pound cardstock. This is mega thick cardstock and one I typically reach for when I want to foil something. In fact, this is my go-to paper when foiling. This, again, is almost as good as Yupo, but it is cheaper compared to Yupo, and the results are almost as good. This is also a 4 in my book. Because of how thick this paper is, you also have this gorgeous letterpressed effect with the foil being pressed deep into the paper. It has a nice tactile feeling. It looks very professional. Next, we're going to venture into a different territory, and we're going to foil on photo paper. Glossy photo paper to be exact. Now, there are all sorts of photo papers out there, different brands, different thicknesses. I have 2 kinds of glossy paper from ColorWay. One is thinner and almost a little bit see-through. It also has a little bit of a blue tint to it, especially compared to the Simon Says Stamp 130-pound cardstock. It is cold white to me. The other photo paper is a little bit thicker, not see-through and not quite as blue, but still cold white, not like the Simon Says stamp white cardstock. Now this paper is somewhat tricky to use. Because the top coating of this paper, I have found that you need to add a sheet of printer paper to your glimmer machine to protect the surface of the photo paper. If you don't add the printer paper, the heat from the glimmer machine will affect the coating on the photo paper and the photo paper will stick to the glimmer surface. Happened to me more than once. So place a sheet of printer paper cut just slightly larger than the size of the photo paper you foil on. Next, add your plate, your foil, and your photo paper. Add the shims and foil as you would anything else. And here's the reveal. Look at that. This paper foils like butter. It foils like nothing else. The glossy photo paper is somewhat similar to Yupo, and if you remember from earlier in this video, Yupo foiled the best. Yupo paper was a 5, and so is this photo paper. It is also a solid 5 in my book. Now, there are slight difficulties when using this paper. It is very different in qualities from regular cardstock. If you tape something onto this paper, you won't be able to completely remove the tape. No matter how low tack it is, it will sort of melt into the surface of the paper and it will leave a dirty mark. So don't tape your plates when foiling on photo paper. This paper also behaves differently when you ink blend or stamp on it. So that's something to keep in mind. So this was the ColorWay Premium High Glossy paper. The last one I have is another photo paper. This is ColorWay High Gloss. So the same brand, just a different kind of photo paper. This is thicker paper, and just like the previous example, requires the sheet of printer paper when foiling to preserve the paper coating. Because it is thicker, similarly to Simon's 130-pound cardstock, it gives a nice letterpress look. You can feel the foil pressed into the paper. This is by far the best paper for hot foiling, and it is also on the cheaper side, especially compared to Yupo paper. This one gets a 5 in my book as well. So there you have it. technically 7 different types of paper tested for hot foil stamping. This experiment shows you that paper matters a great deal. The smoother the paper, the better results you will have. Specialty papers such as Yupo or glossy photo paper will give you the best results, even using the trickier foil plates. I hope this video has been helpful. Leave me a comment below and let me know if there are papers you'd like me to test. I'll try to purchase them and test the papers and share my findings in a second episode of the best cardstock for hot foil stamping. Thanks for joining me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.